become an airline pilot? I'm going to show you the 4 ways on how to become an airline pilot. So there's essentially 4 career pathways to becoming an airline pilot. The first is to become an airline pilot via the Defence Forces. The second is via an Airline Cadetship program. The third is through a flying school, and the fourth would be through attending a college or a university and obtaining an aviation degree. So one option available to you becoming an airline pilot would be through the Defence Forces or through the military. You could graduate as a military pilot, of course, and at the end of your military career, you could later move on to an even higher paying job with one of the airlines. The beauty of the military is that it's fully funded by the military, and what I mean by that is you don't pay for any of your training. In fact, you're probably being paid for your training. It is extremely competitive. They only take a very high level of student to enter their programs, but again, that level really depends on supply and demand. So if not many people are applying for those positions, they do have a broader acceptance base. At the end of the military program, you'll graduate as a pilot, and they are usually degree courses, so that you do have a secondary backup or job available if you decide that staying a pilot with the military isn't for you. The salary level, and I can only speak on Australian salaries in Australian dollars, usually commences at around about $85,000 to approximately $120,000 per year. So the next method available is through an airline cadetship program. It is offered by an airline. It could be any airline that decides that they want to run a particular recruitment drive, and they're offering a cadetship program. Now, the advantage of a cadetship program is that it is fully funded by the airline. Its sole purpose is for you to actually be employed by that airline. The big advantage is you're not paying for any of the training, and most training takes approximately 1.5 years. The big disadvantage of that, though, is that you're not earning any money, which means that on top of studying, you also need to go and get another job to help simply pay for your daily life and living expenses. Programs like these are extremely competitive. They look for a very high quality of student. It's not a degree course, so at the end of the program you will be qualified as usually a second officer or pilot to enter that airline, but it's not a degree course. So if for some reason you leave that airline or decide that you don't want to be a pilot anymore, you've got nothing to fall back on. The salary level for an airline pilot within the first few years, usually base entry salary is around $75,000 up to $190,000. Now this is in Australian dollars, current as of July 2018. But as you progress through the ranks and you become a captain, well, realistically, pardon the pun, but the sky's actually the limit. So your earning capacity could be quite significant, above $250,000 plus. So that brings us to the next method available, which is by going to a flying school. So if you can't get into a military program, or you don't want to get into a military program, or you can't get into a cadetship, which realistically is desirable, you can still look at entering an airline through a flying school under what they call a direct entry program or direct employment program. So there are some ins and outs with this, so we'll just discuss some of them now. The flying school is fully funded by you, which means you pay for all of the training. the approximate cost, you're looking at around about $55,000 to $60,000 to complete the course. Now, this is for a commercial pilot's license, which will allow you to fly as a general aviation pilot for a while until you build your hours. And after building your hours, then you can apply to an airline for a direct entry. It's easy to get into a flying school. All you need to do is turn up and tell them that you want to commence some flight training, and they'll help you with that. It's not a degree course, but you graduate with a commercial pilot's license, and realistically, a degree means nothing in the aviation world, but a commercial pilot's license is everything. Well, commercial, and later on an ATPL, which is an airline transport pilot's license, which we'll talk about in another video. Your commencing salary going in and working for a small operator would be somewhere in the vicinity of around $35,000 to $65,000 a year, again in Australian dollars. It is often used as a direct entry to the airlines when combined with flight hours and twin turbine time. So what I mean by this is that airlines do have certain set minimas that you need to comply with before they will look at accepting you within the airline, and then you have to undergo some additional airline training. So we'll take a look at how you can build those hours and obtain your twin turbine time. So you've completed your training, you've now got a commercial pilot's license, which you obtained through a flight school. Now what you need to do is you need to build your flight hours, or your pilot in command hours. And to do that, there's a number of ways that you can actually do that, and you would do that through the general aviation industry. Now, one mechanism available to you is flight instructing. That is, now you become a flight instructor by doing an additional course and teaching other students how to fly. It's extremely rewarding, and you can build a lot of flight hours that way as well. You could be involved in charter operations, and what I mean by that is ferrying people around who will book your aeroplane for private flights. You could become a freight pilot, and what I mean by that is that you're ferrying different types of cargo around. A jump pilot works for a skydiving centre, and essentially ferries skydivers from the ground up into the air, where they can actually conduct their skydiving operations. You could go into an agricultural setting and become an agricultural pilot as well. Now, on top of this, there are certain minima set by the airline. So before they would accept you into a direct entry program, they might need a certain number of hours, usually 1,000 to 1,500 hours. They may also require that you have completed some turbine time, and what I mean by that is that you've flown a turbine engined aeroplane, or they may require twin time, and what I mean by that is that you have completed operations in a twin engined aeroplane. So there are a number of additional requirements that the airlines would need. The advantage is that you are at this time earning an income. Now, depending on where you're working, you could be fully engaged or it could be part-time. Sometimes you can earn a reasonable income. More often than not, it is very piecemeal and you won't earn a lot of money to begin with. But that is how the industry is based, and if you really want to enter the industry as a pilot, there are some additional sacrifices you need to make prior to being able to apply to the airlines. So the final method is by attending university and obtaining a university or college degree. Now, there are some traps with this. The university college program realistically is very similar to going to a flight school, only it's usually 2 to 3 times the cost. So it's a very expensive road to actually travel. The course will be fully funded by you. You pay for all of the training, and you're not earning any income, which means that you'll probably need to earn an income somewhere else just to survive your college training. It has a very high dropout rate because most people run out of money fairly quickly. The competition is medium. The universities do set their own standards, but these again vary depending on the number of places available. Now, your course could be done through a university or what's known as an aviation college. An aviation college really is just a large flight school that offers a degree at the end of your course. The issue is that aviation degrees mean absolutely nothing in the aviation industry. The only thing that really counts is that you graduate with a commercial pilot's license. So if you're looking at going down this path, what I strongly suggest you do is don't be overawed by these wonderful glossy brochures that they put together. Really sit down, start asking questions. I'll help you put together the questions that you need to ask these people, because you'll be quite surprised at the costs involved in going down a degree path with one of these larger schools. So you do get a degree. So at the end of the day, if for some reason you don't continue on the pilot program, well, you've got a degree to fall back on, assuming of course that you complete the course. Salary level on leaving is the same as the salary that you would receive if you'd gone to a flight school. So 35,000 to 65,000, it's exactly the same as a flight school student. Again, also often uses direct entry to the airlines when combined with flight hours and twin turbine time. So in that regard, it is exactly the same as a flight school. The only difference is a flight school doesn't offer a degree. It only offers your commercial pilot's license, which, as I've said, is truly the only important thing that you need to enter the aviation industry. The costs are incredibly high by going down this program, but if that's what you feel you need to do, then by all means go down this particular path, but it's not something personally that I would recommend. So again, to build your hours before going as a direct entry student into an airline program, you could build those hours through flight instructing, charter operations, freight, jump pilot, agricultural pilot, etc. It really depends on what jobs and what positions are actually available for you to fly as a pilot at that particular time. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here. Please subscribe, but this is only the very first of the videos that are coming your way. I'm going to start going more and more in depth on each of the phases of becoming a pilot, and also putting some video programs up that will also provide some additional flight training, being a qualified flight instructor and pilot. I'm going to also provide different training for you, free of course. That's what I do. So please subscribe, and if you hit that little icon bell as well, you'll also be updated with the latest content. So what I'd really like you to do is comment on this video. I will use those comments for two reasons. Number one, I will respond directly back to you via email or through the comments directly. But secondly, all of the comments that you make, what I will do is I will actually incorporate those into later videos. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk soon.